today we're gonna do a little text study, which with some really fun texts that are not exactly about social justice, but we're gonna discuss them in the social justice context. I think we'll have a lot of fun. So before we begin and before I even share the source sheet, I would love if you would feel like it, if you would just throw into the chat some qualities that you think make good social justice, someone good at social justice work. What are some qualities that you would look for in a social justice leader? And I'll read them out as we get them in the chat. Oh, we're quiet today. That's okay. Anyone want to raise their hand? Oh, great. Okay. Persistence, curiosity, willingness to listen. Beautiful. Compassion, decency, and humanism. So I'm hearing, so yeah, these are really beautiful, important traits. So what we're going to do today is, and first of all, can you all hear me okay? I'm outdoors. And okay, awesome.
Can you tell me who you are?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I forgot to introduce myself. Hi, I'm Rabbi Atara Cohen. I'm a Cooperberg-Rittmaster Pastoral and Educational Intern at CBST. I was just ordained at Yeshivat Maharat. I'm really excited to learn here with you all today. I really love text, and I think they have a lot to tell us about the way that we do justice work. So what we're going to do what we're going to do today is I'm going to share a source sheet into our chat. Hold on one second, everyone. Okay. So you should have gotten a source sheet in the chat. If you click this link, it'll lead you to a PDF, and could just get a thumbs up if you were able to open that. I get some thumbs ups. I'm going to share it again just in case, for those just coming in. Awesome. Okay, and I could also share my screen while we are looking at the actual text, so that way we will all be on the same page. So Jewish texts have a lot of things to say about age. Yeah, don't worry, I'll share my screen, don't worry. When it's relevant. So Jewish texts have a lot of things to say about age, and today we're going to look at two very particular images of youthfulness and agedness, and discuss the pros and cons of each of those images in the context of social justice. So we're going to see what these texts say about the power of being young and the power of being old, and put that in a justice framework. And if you don't like this framework, don't worry, we're going to undermine it all at the end. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up this paradigm. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at this beautiful, it's a song that many communities sing at the end of Shabbos morning davening. Many communities don't sing it, but it is written by a 13th century German pietist who imagines God in many different ways. And this pietist talks about God in the song, talks about God like a person, which empowers us to see ourselves in God. And I chose this particular excerpt because it shows a really interesting framework for understanding young and old. So, which of course is, we're going to break down that dichotomy soon. So hold on one moment, I will share my screen. Okay, so we're going to look at this first text, Anim's Mirot, Song of Glory. And I saw in you, speaking about God, age and youth, and your hair as gray and black. Age on the day of judgment, and youth of the day of battle. I can't help but singing this in my head as I read this. Like a warrior with hands full of power. Okay. So I'm going to stop the share while we discuss, but you also have this on a source sheet, and I want to share again when we look at the new text. So what does it mean here that God is both young and old? You can just raise your hand and you can unmute yourself. Yeah, Sandy. Oh, you are muted. Here, I'll unmute you. Oh, I'm having trouble muting you. Could you unmute yourself?
All right, now I am muted.
Yeah, hear you perfectly. Thank you.
Okay, it means God is ageless. You can't attach an age to God.
Yeah.
And as well as whatever age we are still in the image of God, whatever that means.
Beautiful. So really God encompasses all ages, and no matter what age we are in the image of God. Jeffrey, were you going to say something?
I was going to say the same exact thing that Sandy said. It was like God is ageless.
Beautiful.
But I will also add, with images, I think he's images of everything in the world.
That's me. What's beautiful about this song, and this is just a small excerpt of the song, that it really tries to see God as in the best ways we see ourselves, and it goes through so many different images, and this is just a small little piece of those images. So we're setting up this paradigm of youth as warrior and age as judgment or judge. And we're going to explore what both of these mean in a justice-y context. So the first thing we're going to look at is youth on the day of judgment, on the day of battle. So what does it look like? What does this warrior look like in battle? Now, the source we're going to look at next doesn't directly correspond to youth, but it is the texts that are that this song is alluding to, and it's really powerful. It is one of the oldest parts of the Torah, and it is it's the Song of the Sea. Really powerful, beautiful ode to God for thanking God for the Exodus. So we're going to look at the image of God we see there. Again, I'm going to share my screen. Great. And I like to play around with pronouns when when we're with text. So and sometimes I mess up and I'm not totally consistent. So just bear with me. Okay. So this is from Exodus verses 2 to 6. The Lord is my strength and might, is become my deliverance. This is my God, and I will enshrine them. A God of my parents, and I will exalt them. The Lord, the warrior, Lord is their name. Pharaoh's chariots and his army they has cast into the sea, and the pick of his officers are drowned in the sea of reeds. The deeps covered them. They went down into the depths like a stone. Your right hand, O Lord, glorious in power. Your right hand, O Lord, shatters the foe. Okay, pretty powerful stuff. So what is the image of God we get here? Can you describe this anthropomorphized God? Like, what is this God like? Yeah, Stacy.
Is there a way to just like leave that in the chat somewhere?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because
Yeah.
I sort of got it, but I kind of got lost in it.
Yeah, here. First, I'm going to share the, this is a source sheet, the link in the chat. And if that doesn't work for you, I'll copy and paste the actual text.
Oh, that's perfect. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Sure. So, so what the, so yeah, what is God like here? Oh, now Siri is talking to me. Okay, what is God like here? Yeah, Stacy.
To be honest with you, this whole thing about I mean, I understand God can be a deliverer, but it just sort of feels a little overwhelming that he, or pardon the expression, because that's the way I grew up, the Shekhinah, if you will, sort of like, at first it's like, it reminds me of the prayer that says, even though my parents forsake me,
Mm-hmm.
and that God will be there, or something to that nature. So the first part, the Lord is my strength, that reminds me of that. Like sometimes you just feel like, oh my goodness, you can pick your friends, but you can't pick your family, as much as they love you and as much as you love them in their own way. But the rest of it sounds sort of like it's such a mean, how can mean, I mean, God, what does justice mean in a world where we're looking, we're trying to emulate someone from the Torah, or somebody's reading a Bible, or whatever religious book they're reading, and saying, well, if God can be angry and just take everybody out, why can't I just do it? I mean, I'm in the image of God, and it's just,
Beautiful.
it's a weird.
Yeah, this is uncomfortable. We don't, many of us don't like to think of God in this militaristic way. So I see some things in the chat. So powerful, strong, dominant, militaristic, God is warrior. And yeah, Carol.
Okay. I see it almost in what is viewed as a traditional masculine militaristic way.
Mm-hmm.
And I prefer to think of God in terms of pronouns is they or them, because I think there's always a sort of female side or feminist side, masculine side, which is what the Native Americans believe. So I'm going to refer to God as them. And I think a person can be a warrior and be almost an agent of God, and not be going around beating people up. For an example, I think Dr. Fauci is certainly, I would call him very much an agent of God. Barack Obama is powerful and an agent of change. And if you want to look on the other side, and the opposite, you have elected officials who'll be nameless, who go around beating their chests like the silverback gorillas.
So right, there are so we on the one hand have this discomfort of with this warrior image, but at the same time there are some pros, there are some virtues to fighting in these holy fights. And it's not for nothing that the sort of pejorative term for people involved in the social justice world is social justice warrior, because it's actually part of the work. Beautiful. So I will do God's work in the battle for good. Beautiful. Oh, I love this. Okay, so yeah. So on the one hand, yes, it is uncomfortable to think of God as vengeful. It is uncomfortable to but at the same time there are pros and cons to this approach to justice. And I'm seeing in the chat, this we are looking at the tasks of youth, the physical, energetic modes of youth. And God is represented in this way here. Beautiful. What we're going to do now is we're going to switch over to the image of God as aged, an image of God as Yom Hadin, or Day of Judgment. And we're going to look at a really, I think, two very beautiful texts about being older. So I'm going to, again, share the, I'm going to share the source sheet again, and also I will share my screen so that way we all have it at the same time. Oh, actually, better yet, well, I'll share my screen. Great. So, 1 second, I have my chat stuck in the way. Okay. So there are two texts we're looking at here. Age on the Day of Judgment. This is the paradigm we set up from the beginning. So the first text is a verse from Proverbs. Gray hair is a crown of glory. It is attained by the way of righteousness. I like to tell this to my mom, who's starting to go gray. And then the second text we're going to look at is a midrash, which is an exegetical text on the Bible. So what it does is it's from around the 3rd to 5th century, and what these rabbis do is they take a piece of a verse and then explain what they think it means. So this is their explication of a verse in Exodus. So go and gather the elders of Israel. The elders always uphold Israel. And so it says, and all of Israel and its elders and its officials and its judges standing on either side of the ark. When does Israel stand? When they have elders. Why? When the temple was standing, they would ask the elders, as it says, ask your parents and they will tell you, your elders and they will speak to you. For anyone who takes advice from the elders will not stumble. Great. So, again, you have it in your source sheets if you want to look back on it. I could also, but I just like to have everybody's face when we discuss. So, how are the elders upholding Israel here? The elders are the one. Yes, Stacy. Oh, Stacy, okay. And then Sandy.
Oh, let Sandy go first.
Great, Sandy.
There seems.
Oh no, you muted yourself again. There you go.
All right. There seems to be an assumption that because they're older, that they're wiser, or they know more, or they're better leaders, and that's not necessarily a true assumption in reality.
Yes, absolutely. And our next text is going to really dig into that assumption. Stacy.
Sandy, I really appreciate you going first because I forget that sometimes. But from my perspective growing up, I always had this vision of older people knowing more than I did. So thank you for that, Sandy.
So beautiful. So it's maybe rather than they're talking about elders here, but they're really talking about wisdom and those who possess wisdom. And for a lot of the time that overlaps with elders, and a lot of times that doesn't. How exactly does wisdom play out in a justice context? Like if you are working with an organization, what does this look like? Jeffrey.
Okay. For me, because I've been involved in social justice for, I can't believe, 40 years, to me is the ability, what you think is true one day could change the next day. The ability to change and to be flexible with your with what's going on. Because if you say I know this, it may not be true tomorrow. That's That's how I basically will sum that up. I don't know. That makes sense.
Beautiful. Yeah, absolutely. So the wisdom to know to change, the wisdom to know to be flexible. And often people without that wisdom are maybe one of the more militant folks would not want to change, would not want to be flexible, and they need this wise counterpart in order to encourage them to see a greater perspective. What else would this look like? Wisdom is the ability to guide with the help of past experience. Beautiful, beautiful. Yes, Stacy.
Anyway, I have this thing that I'm fortunate in our synagogue to have friends my age and friends that are older. So both give me the wisdom of experience. So I would think of it more as the wisdom of experience, because it's just that I just happen to have older, like if I have an issue with something, whatever, and I pick up the phone with someone who's older than me says, "You called me to calm down, didn't you?" You know. So in that sense, yes, I don't. Sometimes it could be whether you're the same age or whether you're older. I think it really depends now on what the quality. I don't know if quality is the right word, but what the person exudes to you personally.
Beautiful. So two things. One, really that it comes that there's power to experience, that certain types of fights, or fights isn't the right word, but certain types of campaigns or works actually benefit a lot from folks who have done the same thing before and could say, this is similar, this is what worked before, and this is what didn't. And also there's relationship really matters here, and knowing to reach out to the people who are supportive, will support you in certain areas is really, really crucial. Learning brings knowledge. Beautiful. So what we have are these two images we have that are really stereotypes. We have the stereotype of the young, energetic warrior who's perhaps inflexible, but has the energy to be militant in their fight for justice and their fight for good. And we have the wise elders, again, stereotypes, who are provide perspective, provide experience, provide wisdom. And again, these are stereotypes, and there are pros and cons to each. The militant young person really will fight for, will have the energy to push through and fight, but also may not have the flexibility. And flip side for the justice elder. What we're going to do now, beautiful. Perhaps we really need collaboration, cooperation, and cooperation to see and hear each other. Beautiful. So let's turn now to our last text, which again stereotypes young and old, but has a twist at the end. So the last text we're going to look at is from Pirkei Avot, which is a sort of collection of aphorisms from around the first and second century. They range from all sorts of different topics, and we're going to get two images here. So what we're going to do, there are flies. 1 second. Great. Okay, so Elisha ben Abuya, who is actually an ex-rabbi, he ended up becoming a heretic, but I think that's later in life. He wouldn't be. He said, "He who learns when a child, to what is he compared? To ink written upon a new writing sheet. And he who learns when an old man, to what is he compared? To ink written on a rubbed writing sheet." Rabbi Yossi ben Yehuda, a man of Kfar HaBavli, said, "He who learns from the young, to what is he compared? To one who eats unripe grapes and drinks wine from his vat. And he who learns from the old, to what is he compared? To one who eats ripe grapes and drinks old wine." And we'll get to Rabbi in a minute. So what is the difference between, so again, these are super stereotypes. But I just want to understand the metaphors here before we get into our feelings about them. What does it mean to be a learner who is a white sheet, a clean slate? And what does it mean to be a learner who is on sort of a written on and then erased sheet?
In either case, it's got to be a learner who can learn from the other, whether it's the older person or the younger person, because the experiences are different, and experiences that I might have had at 40 are different than what somebody else might have at 40, because the times are different. And so you have to be able to learn from either one, I guess.
Beautiful. So there are just different learning experience at different ages. So Sabrina says there are advantages to both and try to combine the best of each. Amazing. Jeffrey.
Okay, we'll have another perspective with this, because I agree with the other perspective, because I find you learn when you don't know something. If you say you know it, you're not going to learn it because you know it already, even though you may not know it, but you have to admit you have to continually learning, but that's the only way you're going to learn stuff.
Yeah, amazing. And I think Elisha ben Abuya is prejudiced here, and I think he thinks that you're more open to learning when you're young and you haven't learned very much before, and you're more willing to change your opinion because you don't have any opinion yet. But at the same time, Rabbi Yossi says that it's actually better to learn from older people because they are like ripe grapes. They are like ripe wine that has been that has gained an experience. And I don't really drink wine, but apparently older wine is better. And so we have the setup of younger learners are perhaps have an easier time learning, and older teachers perhaps are better teachers. But then we get what Rabbi, who says, who has a very famous line here, that's often taken out of context, but actually really in context he's talking about age. And I'm just going to copy and paste it right into the chat so I don't have to share my screen again. Rabbi said, "Don't look at the container, but at that which is in it. There is a new container full of old wine, and an old container in which there is not even new wine." So exactly as we've been saying, these are really stereotypes. There are older folks who are really are excellent teachers and really are paradigms of wisdom. And there are younger folks who aren't great learners or really don't want to learn. So we've set up these stereotypes, and they all have pros and cons. But at the same time, we remember the statement of Rabbi, who says actually, these are stereotypes, and it doesn't really matter the container of the person who is in them. It doesn't matter what they look like or what their age is. Um, and there and at the same time there are, and so it's really, image doesn't matter. Thank you, Sabrina. So is there so do you have a text that really spoke to you about the way you want to go about doing justice work here, in what we've done, in what we said? Again, doesn't matter if you're young or old. Is there something that you want, that you're excited about here? Sandy?
No, sorry.
Oh, no? Okay, great. Um, yeah, Jane. Oh, can you unmute yourself?
Shit. Would you repeat the question?
Oh yeah. So now that we've seen a whole bunch of different texts, what is there any particular text and paradigm that speaks to you in particular in your own social justice work?
Yeah.
Jane, yeah.
Thank you. I'm seeing this period of pandemic and uprising as what the Indian author Arundhati Roy calls a portal. There's going to be many, many choices that people will be making. I think that the young people who are on the streets, my experience is that they're asking more questions to those of us who have been through many stages of battles from the 60s, before the 60s, and since the 60s. And so that a lot is up to our own integrity, about what we're listening to, what we're studying, what we're taking in, about why is this moment different. And I've read a lot of analysis about periods of pandemics as paralleled to periods of social change, intense social change. And so a lot of it is up to each of our own stalwartness, I'd say, and honesty and openness to what our role is at this moment. It's very, I think it's a complex moment, but it's a very, if I can use this word, pregnant with possibility for hope and faith and peace, different than if it weren't a pandemic, because there have been many George Floyds before this that didn't rise up. I mean, Breonna Taylor, we're catching up to a year later. So I think it's a portal. I like the word of portal of possibilities.
Beautiful. And you said so many beautiful things. I just want to pull out a few. One is that during this period where we're sort of stuck, like physically, there is a much more of a search for breadth and depth in the way that we're looking to learn. And actually, people are really pushing themselves to learn from different sources, to reach out and be much more open. And it seems that we're all, in certain ways, learners as blank sheets right now. You bringing in our own experiences, but at the same time, really being open to learning, and that's really, really fruitful. Yeah. Does anyone? Is there another perspective on the justice, on justice work that's in this moment of pandemic, that you see here?
I'm not sure if what you call it justice. My thinking is, during times of stress, people, usually people, let me put it this way. many years ago I had cancer, and you're fighting and you're fighting and you're fighting, and then all of a sudden everything is good because you're free of whatever it is that caused the problem. And then you're while you've changed in one way, you've grown in another way. The sameness of life, of the things that still happen, and you still are still questioned to me, like why, like I feel really good or whatever, but why would I go back to getting depressed, or things of that nature. And sometimes I look at it as, well, great, I'm so proud of New York, because I can't speak for anyone else. I mean, I'm a New Yorker. That we really, a lot of us have worked to get this thing down. But even in the sense of justice, I still see people more and more not wearing masks, not, just feeling, forgetting in a way that because we're lower in numbers, that it's just easier to wear without. Now, I'm not saying that there might be people that really can't wear a mask, but then I say, okay, so if you can't wear a mask, wear a shield, because you don't have to wear the mask. I mean, you can, but at least you're doing something to, and nobody says, hey, why don't you just use shield? At least that's something. So that I kind of think of, like, yes, I guess we move in increments, and sometimes I just wish we didn't have to move so much in an increment, that we could just like move.
Yeah, there's there sometimes things feel too slow, and that there's not enough movement. And yes, there's incredible generative power right now, and at the same time, people are not learning. So we might be learning different things social justice wise, but also at the same time, many people are not wearing masks, or which might be a justice issue, or etc. etc.
To me,
And
I apologize for interrupting, but to me, that is a justice issue.
yeah,
Because yes, I'm not saying that anyone, regardless of who you are, or what happened to you, but I think justice is not just is an extension to one another.
hmm, beautiful. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Um, it's a way of protecting other people, and it's really a statement, and it's really creating a culture of care when you wear a mask. I And perhaps we need a little bit of this youthful militance to say, no, we need to be moving forward. We need to be, everybody, you should be wearing a mask if you, or whatever face covering is appropriate for you. And maybe we need a little bit more of that. Um, Anyone else have perspective on the justice of the moment they'd like to share? Oh, Noemi wrote, complacency is the antithesis of social justice. Indeed. Um, Indeed, that this really is a moment where people can't be complacent, because life is totally not normal. Life is totally bonkers. But at the same time, we set into certain patterns. And the mask thing is also about respecting the social compact. Absolutely. I wear a mask to protect you. You wear a mask to protect me. Any last thoughts before we sum up?
I like this class.
Feel free to keep the sources. Please read the entirety of Anim's Miro if you have the time. It is, I'm biased, I really like it, but I really appreciate different ways of seeing God, and being able to see different types of, as we've done here, different attributes of God and different attributes of people. All have pros and cons, and we can learn from all of them. Sometimes it's good to be militaristic. Sometimes it's good to be quieter and more sagely. And really, there are, and sometimes it's appropriate to be both, in this moment and always. I really enjoyed learning this with you. You all had really important things to say. We're going to end a few minutes early, which no one ever complains about. And I'm looking forward to continuing to learn with many of you throughout the summer